So I want to do just a small kind of tribute video for Sabu and Super Genie, Terry and Melissa. My page has got a few different tribute videos. I have one for Norm Macdonald, Gilbert Godfrey, and Daisy Berkowitz, and I've kind of crossed paths with these people. Norm Macdonald I never met or had any interaction with. I was just a pretty big fan of his. But I used to do music and then kind of hung out in comedy shows and stuff. And so I got to know a lot of celebrities, and I used to rap at wrestling shows, so I got to know a few wrestlers over the years too. So everything's kind of intertwined, and then all these years later I'm still meeting people and stuff. But usually I make the dedication videos I make are like a collage video of clips that I put together into a cool package. But this one I just kind of want to share a few things that I got from Sabu and talk about my short friendship I had with them. Not that the friendship ended, it's just they both passed away, unfortunately. As far as Sabu, I didn't really have much interaction with Sabu. Whatever I had was through Melissa. Now, Melissa was Super Genie, and that was Sabu's wife. And I didn't know that until after she had passed away. I never really, I figured they were probably together, but I didn't really know their relationship. Because we just never talked about it really. But Super Genie, Melissa was such a nice, kind-hearted person. And so, a long time ago when Sabu was working on trying to get this money for his hip replacement, he was getting rid of stuff. He was selling his personal stuff and kind of struggling for money and stuff, and then doing the independent thing and stuff. And I started promoting his GoFund to help him out, and they sent me some cool stuff. So I'll get into the two things that I have from him. Now I asked for if Melissa could send me a photo with Terry, but they sent me this old school photo, which I actually like, and it's a duplicate, but he made it out to me. It says "To Confusion," and it has Sabu's autograph on it, and he's with Rob Van Dam. Very old school picture. So this is one of the things that I got from them. And the other thing I got from them is, this is really cool. I'm big into toy collecting. If you browse my channel, you can probably see the toy room I have and all the collection, the action figures and stuff. I have some wrestling figures from like 2002 when I actually worked at KB Toys. So this is the other thing that I have. And it's a signed Sabu with the Big Show. WrestleMania, it's a double pack. Now this here, this is their original address from where they mailed it from, their actual apartment. So that's not their last residence. So I could show the address now because they're both passed away, and they didn't live at that at the Georgia address for years. So I don't know, I saved that because I always thought it was cool that it was directly from their house that they had sent it, and has their address on it and stuff. And I covered up my old address on it so people can't see. That's why I had the toy in front of it. But Yeah, I saved both of those things. So this, unfortunately, this is a little bent up, Like I said, I'm a toy collector, so things like Ben's in the corner bother me. But, this being autographed by Sabu is really cool. I remember he was getting rid of a pair of pants that were similar to these, if not the same ones. And I think he wanted, maybe $500 for them, maybe 1,200. I don't remember the price. I wish I would have got it, but at the time I was in the middle of moving and stuff like that. So those are the two items that I got from Sabu. But yeah, Melissa was really, really sweet. After I donated some money to him for a surgery, and then I got these toys and stuff, and then I figured that would be kind of that. But Melissa kept talking to me, like as a friend. And so we emailed each other back and forth, and I still have all of her emails saved. It's hard to even talk about it because I feel like crying almost. But she was really nice to me, and I remember this is around the time my dad had passed away, which is about 7 years ago or something. And I was going through probate. And I remember I was talking to her about probate and stuff and about my dad. And she was very comforting about that. And just really cool about that. And so, they would go and they would wrestle through the independent circuit. And Sabu made sure to take care of her. And, he basically, from what I heard, is like you couldn't book Sabu without Super Genie. He wasn't leaving her behind. He's like, that's, like my manager. She managed all of his stuff and ran all the merchandise and, just anything internet-wise or anything like that, she helped him with and did all that. And then when she passed away, I know that had a really just it probably just took a piece of his soul. Really, it had to. There was one point that I was like heavily involved in talking to the people at Compound Media, which was Anthony Cumia's podcast, from Opie and Anthony. And that was around the time Dave Landau from Louder with Crowder was the co-host. And also for a while, Artie Lang from Howard Stern was the other co-host. So I started going out to comedy shows and I got to know, Dave Landau really good. He's a really good guy. This is before he went on Louder with Crowder. He was with Anthony. Anthony's studio, if you've seen any at some point, if you watch podcasts, you've probably seen somebody do a podcast at Anthony's original studio that he was at for like 10 years or so. And I had been to the studio before and the podcast studio and stuff. And Sabu had come out with I think he had a book he had out. And since I was talking to both people at the same time, I was pretty close with the comedians, and then I was pretty close with Melissa. I was trying to talk to them both because I liked them both so much. I was trying to be a middleman and get Anthony to interview Sabu and Super Genie. And they were kind of all for it. I think I actually have a screenshot of it somewhere saved of, Sabu saying, yeah, sure, contact me. And Rob Van Dam was actually on that podcast. So I told Sabu, I said, if you want to double check, I know you're friends with Rob. He just did that podcast. See, ask him if he liked doing it. And then you know, I tried giving both parties the contact information to get a hold of each other, but I think really what happened was each side was waiting for the other side to contact each other, and then it kind of never went through and it kind of fizzled out. Um, so I always try to do that with different celebrities that I know, is like if I know one from over here and one from over here and they've never met each other, and I know, like, say Dave, for example, he's into, wrestling. Anthony had interviewed Jericho and Lesnar, and over the years he interviewed a lot of wrestlers, and I think he interviewed Vince McMahon. Um, and Vince McMahon had a thing with Sam Roberts eventually, where he gave him, a customized WWE belt. Sam Roberts was part of Opie and Anthony and stuff. So really, I was just trying to join the two, and unfortunately, it never came through and it never happened. But that would have been really awesome if it did. Um, but yeah, me and Melissa talked a lot online on through email, and then eventually through Facebook. I don't know if she added me or I added her. I don't remember. But then we started talking through Messenger because it was a lot easier than email. Because the email started to get confusing. Um, so Melissa wanted to meet up with me and hang out, and that's the type of person she was. Is if you were a fan, of Sabu or her, she was really friendly to the fans, and then started treating them like friends, and was like, do you want to hang out if when I'm in your area sometime? And I was like, yeah, that'd be, fucking awesome. That'd be great. Um, but the thing is she got mixed up on the cities. So I lived in Cleveland. I don't live there anymore, but I moved a few years ago. But I was in Cleveland, and she got Cleveland and Chicago mixed up. And I think the reason she got those mixed up is just because they both start with C. They're kind of similar. So they had gone to Cleveland first, and then they went to Chicago afterwards. So she contacted me when she was on the way to Chicago, and she said, hey, we're going to be in Chicago. Do you want to hang out, in a day or two or whatever? And I said, oh, I'm in Cleveland, not Chicago. And she goes, oh, we just left Cleveland. She goes, we're just leaving there now, and now we're on our way to Chicago. And I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, well, that was just, unfortunate mix-up. So she goes, well, next time we're in Cleveland, we'll hang out. And I don't know, like, the terms of hanging out, like, what she meant by that, if she just meant, like, come up to the show and hang out, or hang out afterwards and actually, like, kick it around town, or we never really went into depth of what it was. Because she was usually busy. We would have sometimes we'd have short talks, sometimes we'd have long talks. But she was just a really, really nice person. And then she eventually, if people don't know, she lost her leg right at towards the end of her life. And I think it was something to do with her artery, maybe. And they had to amputate her leg, and that was really rough for her. And she was kind of having a hard time adjusting to that. Now, at the same time, I knew a girl in Texas who was in the Army, and she actually got her leg blown off from a bomb in the ground. I think as the helicopter landed and they got off the helicopter or something like that, the bomb wasn't that far away from the helicopter, and the girl stepped on it and it blew her leg off. And so I had known this other female that was an amputee that had lost her leg, and so I reached out to her and I said, hey, I know this famous wrestler, because the military girl, she didn't know really anything about wrestling. but she was into modeling. She did some modeling and stuff, and Melissa was she did modeling as well, like bodybuilding, modeling. There's I think there's a wrestling match she did that was kind of like a naked wrestling match. It's probably really hard to find now, but I think maybe it was topless or something like that. But she was always in really good shape, so very fit and everything. But anyways, I tried linking the two girls up for support. So I'd asked the military girl, I said, I know this wrestler, she just lost her leg. I said, would it be okay if I gave her your contact information and just and let her and have her message you for, like female to female support on being like, the shock of losing your leg and having to adapt to that, and the depression that comes with it. And, totally her whole life revolved around being with Sabu and being his manager and helping him out and stuff. And, then like she couldn't really do that anymore. So I linked her up with my friend, and I'm not sure if they ever talked or anything. The last few messages I got from Melissa were kind of cloudy. She seemed a bit lost. And I don't know if they were giving her like medication or something for her leg. Maybe that was it. She might have been in extreme pain, or maybe she was just extremely busy, or maybe she was depressed. I don't know what it was, but that was kind of the last conversations I had with Jeannie. Was I was kind of like, well, here's my friend. She lost her leg, and if you want to reach out to her for support, here's her contact information. And then we still plan to, meet up sometime and hang out. And then shortly after, it was like, bam, she passed away. And so I think from what I saw in a Sabu interview was she had a heart attack and he tried to, revive her, and he couldn't do it. And then he kind of blamed himself for not calling 911 instead, because he thought that he could save her. But I think, in that instance, she probably just couldn't be saved either way. Probably by the time the ambulance got there, it would have been too late anyways. So, he tried his best to revive her and he couldn't, and he blamed himself for that. And then I didn't really have any contact with him after that, because anything I had was talks through her. So, like I said, like I consider her my friend, her Facebook is still on my one old Facebook profile. And all the messages are still there and stuff, and I have them backed up and saved for myself. I still have all her emails saved and stuff, just to remember her by. But yeah, that's kind of the story I have with Sabu and Super Genie. Like I said, I don't know. I think Melissa maybe passed away 3 or 4 years ago, I'm guessing. It's been a while. And so when I watched any type of interviews with Sabu afterwards, he seemed just kind of lost a little bit. It just, like I said earlier, it felt like that piece of him was kind of taken away. And so he was half a person. And the way Sabu is he was going to wrestle to his death. Like, this is how he made his living. I don't think he had much savings, I don't think. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful at all by saying any of that stuff, but I'm just saying this is how it is he's, he had to wrestle to make a living. And, unfortunately he had bad injuries and stuff, and he was in, a lot of pain. And, pain was just something that was natural to that guy. And he, Sabu was going to wrestle to the end. It didn't matter if it happened, today, yesterday, or 20 years from now when he was 60, 70, 80. He would still be wrestling until, he couldn't. And that's what he did is, he just had it. Yeah, so my phone shut off because I'm recording in 4K, so it took up all the memory. But I pretty much said what I had to say, and that's pretty much all. I'll just leave that there. I'll leave that in there. But yeah, to end this, yeah, Sabu and Super Genie, rest in peace. They're two really, really, really good people, and it's a shame they passed away. They're definitely two people that should have lived another 20 years or so. And the few interactions I had with them were, they were really great people. So I just wanted to give them their flowers and share those little stories I had about them, because it amplifies the type of people that they were. They love their fans, and that's what I'll leave it at is, great ECW wrestler, hardcore wrestler. Super Genie was the great, support that he needed in his life. And, rest in peace to both of them. And it's very sad that they're both, gone.